Hello, tube heads. I was thinking about this today. I was talking to a couple of the girls at my work, and we started talking about some random shit. And somebody mentioned the name Patrick, and it made me think of this. Is there anybody in your life, and I'm kind of speaking specifically about when you were a young kid, because kids are cruel, but it could be, I guess, at any time in your life. Is there anybody in your life that you were just exceptionally cruel to at some point, that you wish that you could go back and apologize to? I have a person that springs to mind immediately. His name was Patrick, and he. Before I get into this, I should probably preface this with a little story about my childhood. I was a chubby kid. I was a really athletic kid, like kindergarten through fifth grade. And then in the sixth grade, I got fat. And there are two types of fat kids that are that age. And all the way through high school, I think this applies. You are either a fat kid that overcomes that social stigma of being fat by being funny, outgoing, generally charismatic, and you gain a lot of friends, and people generally don't fuck with you. I was lucky enough to be one of those. I'm not saying I was never picked on. Because I was from time to time, but I had a really silver tongue. I still do. People would say something to me, and I had this way about me of just delivering this devastating counter comeback that would just destroy them in front of their friends. And so people learned really, really early on that either Paul's a cool motherfucker, or if you don't think so, you might want to keep it to yourself, because Paul's a bastard when it comes to comebacks. So I was lucky all through high school. I don't feel that I was picked on a whole lot. I had a lot of really good friends, and things were great. That's category one. The second category of fat kids is the fat kids that just withdraw because they're picked on, and they're just delicate people, and they're not prepared for that shit. And so they're picked on, and so in response to being picked on, they just withdraw into their own little world, and it just makes them, they get picked on worse because of it. Patrick was one of those. And this was a kid that was in junior high, and I would ride the bus home every day behind Patrick with one of my friends, Rodney. Now, Patrick was a fat kid, and Patrick had a gigantic mole on the back of his neck. Right here. And I'm talking like this wasn't just a normal mole. This was a gigantic, hairy mole. And I feel like I'm making fun of Patrick again, and it makes me feel awful. Every day we would sit behind Patrick on the bus. We would find out wherever he was on the bus. We'd make sure he got on before us, and we would sit behind him. And we would pick on this fucking kid incessantly, making comments about his mole. We would say, "Oh, Jesus Christ, I think it winked at me. Is it moving?" And like Rod would make these little long twisted pieces of paper or like a paper clip, and he would like poke at it and stuff. It was horrible. Patrick never said a fucking thing to us, ever. And he had the distinct displeasure of getting off the bus at the same stop that me and Rodney did. I feel fucking awful about this. Like, this is something that I'm serious. This tears me up inside to think that I did this to another person. Because it's not, I guess it is like me, but it's just not, I don't know. I give good-natured ribbings to my friends. My friends, we go back and forth, and I've always probably been the best in my crew of friends at I don't know what you call it nowadays. Back in the day, we used to call it capping on people, snapping on people. I don't know, just making fun of people. You do the back and forth with your guy friends. I do that a lot, and I'm good at it. But I don't think that this just comes off to me as so cruel, and I just don't know. I don't know what made me do this to this kid. But he would get off on the same bus stop as we would, and he would walk in front of us, and he carried this bag, and the best I can describe it is like a laptop case. It wasn't a backpack. He would hold it by a handle, like a briefcase type of deal, but it was a soft material, like made out of the same material as a backpack. So like a laptop case. He didn't have a laptop. He'd carry his books in it. And we would follow behind this kid and continue to fuck with him until he had to take the left turn and both of us had to go right, walking the rest of the way home. And we did this every day. And one day, and like I said, Patrick never said anything to us. Every once in a while when we were poking at his mole with something, he would reach back and slap our hand away or whatever, but he never said a word to us, never said an unkind thing to us, not once. And one day, I guess Patrick had had enough, and we fucked with him on the bus all the way home. And we got off the bus behind him and continued to fuck with him. And at one point, I was, right behind him, going to go do something to his mole, and he wheeled around with that bag of his. Wheeled around and almost took my fucking head off with it. Wheeled around and just barely missed my face by like an inch. And said, and I'll never forget him saying this, he said, "Why don't you just fucking shoot me?" And I think that me and Rod just kind of stood there, and he turned around and left, and we never fucked with him again. I feel really terrible about having brought somebody to that point, being so cruel to somebody, because the way he said it, I believed it was true. I believed that he hoped that one of us had a fucking gun and we would just blow him away. And I felt awful. And I still feel awful to this day. And I still, every once in a while, think about him and wish that I could, and I know he wouldn't want to hear from me. I know he wouldn't. But I wish that I could remember his last name or find out where he was, just so that I could apologize to him for that. What a fucking awful thing to do. So I'm wondering if any of you out there have just been exceptionally cruel to somebody like that at some point in your life. And I'm going to assume that most of the stories that you have probably come from childhood, because kids are different. Kids have the propensity to be extraordinarily cruel. And I, as an adult, I've never done anything like that to somebody. And I never would. I just never would be able to. But it still bothers me. So I'm wondering, do you have any stories where you were just exceptionally cruel to somebody and you still feel bad about it today? So leave me a text comment or let's get some video responses going about this. Peace, everybody.